Hello again. I hope you're not going to get fed up of my voice. I'm going to be talking about a slightly different topic about how to actually start your brand. This is something I hear a lot. Again, we've got the QR code here. I actually need to add these slides to the QR code, but feel free to carry on clicking through and you'll be able to get these later in the week. So 5 simple steps to start a fashion brand by me. So for anybody new that has joined, I'm Elizabeth. I am a fashion brand consultant. I work with fashion and textiles brands on their mindset, manufacturing and marketing. I've worked in the fashion industry for over 15 years across buying and supplying. I've worked for Next, Miss Selfridge, Asda, Warehouse, Urban Outfitters, like name a high street brand and I'll have had something to do with it at some point. I've worked across women's wear, across kids wear, wovens, jersey, Europe, Asia, all the lot. So hopefully I'll be able to share a little bit of insight about how to actually get started. Actually, before we get started, hands up if you are in the first 2 years of starting your brand. Yeah, okay, I would say that's the majority of you. Half to the majority, it's good to know. Step 1, how to name your business. I think this really, really holds people back because they feel like it's naming their child and they really just get completely fixated on it. Or they'll say, you know, I'll get started when. I'll get started when. That is a real, trap. If you hear yourself falling down that trap, just notice that that is going to be holding you back from doing the thing. So don't let it block you from starting because it's not set in stone forever. I don't know if anybody remembers that Nike hasn't always been called Nike. It was called Blue Ribbon, I think. If anybody hasn't read the book Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, it's all about the story of how Nike came about. And it was absolutely fascinating. And he just didn't let anything stand in his way. There is also another really interesting book about how Netflix began. And that book is called It'll Never Work. And he actually named his business officially something like canine dog food because he knew that when he was starting a brand, your mind is all over the place. You've got a million different things to think about. So he consciously called it something that he would have to change when he was in a better mind frame, but he knew that he just had to get started. So yeah, definitely take a look at those 2 books. Business books have seen me through some of the darkest times, just being able to read people's stories about how they came through and sort of overcame the challenges that you'll be facing. It was really interesting. So there's all different ways to sort of think about naming your brand. You can think about naming it in a way to do what it suggests. So we've got, for example, New Look or Topshop. It's saying what it does on the tin. Next, they're saying what they're doing. They want to be the New Look. They want to be the Topshop. They want to be Next. So that is one way, I guess, of naming your brand. You can also name it after yourself. I think this has often held people back because they're worried about the link of what if it doesn't work? What does that mean for me? What does it mean for my name if I'm attached to something that has potentially failed? But, our brains are on this negative bias. That's automatically what you're going to think. But what if it is attached to something that actually turns out to be pretty cool, like H&M, Henny's and Ritz, Marks and Spencer, Yeezy? All of these brands are actually named after the person that started them. You can just make it up. This is a really good way of getting found on Google. So I can't think of a fashion example off the top of my head, but think about something like Deliveroo. The second you type that into into Google, it will automatically come up because it's a made-up word. You've got no competition on Google. This is massively something I want you to be thinking about when you're naming your brand. It's kind of why you see a lot of brands like Lucy and Yak and putting 2 different words together because, again, it's great for searchability. If I worked with a brand and she said she was going to call it something like Dress Up, and I was like, no, because when people are searching it, they're just going to come up with loads of fancy dress. So you've got to be thinking sort of 1 step ahead. And also it can be completely random. So there is like mango quiz, but again, like you've got to think of your SEO, which is your search engine optimization. When you're starting out, you want people to be discovering you online, and if it's too broad, you're going to get lost. So please make sure that you're practicing searching it. And I could do a whole other talk about SEO, but just think about how people are going to discover you, and also trust your gut with it, because you might think it sounds weird. You go, well, what does that sound weird? I've never really said that before, but I'm sure Sainsbury's sounded weird when it started out, or if you've never really seen that before, and then the more you see it, the more normal it becomes, and the more you say it, the easier it becomes. So practice saying it with your friends and family, maybe see what reaction you get. But at the end of the day, everybody's going to have an opinion on what it is that you're creating. And if you love it, you go for it. If you can confidently say it and say, this is my brand, we don't want it sort of whispered under the breath. We want to be able to say it out loud, say it loud and proud, and get people saying it for you in time. So step 2 is to actually understand the process. This is so underrated, and I actually had a funny conversation with a guy once who wanted to book in a call, and he was like, said, what is it that you want from this call? I want to be the next Gymshark. Okay, we've only got 60 minutes. It's like $1 billion brand. We can try, we can do our best. But he had no idea about the process behind starting a fashion brand. I don't know about you, but I studied fashion at school, and when I say I've studied fashion, I do tend to get a bit of an eye roll. How cute. Oh, it's like Clueless. And you're like, no, it's not really like that at all. I studied fashion retail buying, and during my degree, I actually read a newspaper article that said people are studying Mickey Mouse degrees like fashion retail buying, and I was like, cool. Okay, I'm so glad that I chose this. But actually, people don't understand the logistics and the technicalities and the depths behind creating fashion. It is an art form. I'm probably, I could go on a complete rant about this, but taking fashion seriously is something that is very, very important to me, and it's kind of why I do what I do. Hopefully you were lucky enough to be able to be encouraged to study fashion, but if you weren't, and it's kind of something that you're coming back to at a later point in your life, then going and looking and researching the process behind how a garment comes to, a stand like this is so important, because you're going to get caught out. When you're working with manufacturers and factories, going into the sourcing stage, these people know what it is that they're talking about. So being able to use a little bit of industry jargon, knowing the process, how things work, is really going to play in your favor. So this is a very narrowed down format of how a garment comes from paper to production. First of all, inspiration. Don't feel like, I don't know where to begin, because the best way to begin is getting inspiration, getting on Pinterest, getting your pen and paper and glue and scissors all out. People learn in different ways, or they create in different ways. So whichever way feels most natural to you, start there. There is no right or wrong way of doing this, or the creative process. It is, up to you. Start mood boarding, start seeing what it is that you love, see what it is that you're inspired by, and then kind of go back to it at a later date, because what we don't want to do is start picking at it. Like that part of our brain comes in that this isn't good enough, people aren't going to be interested in this, is it just me, is it weird? Like all those questions start creeping in. So just do it in like small, short, sharp chunks when you're feeling inspired, to make sure that you're keeping the inspiration high. And then moving on to a range build. So, okay, you've got pages and pages and pages and reams of inspiration. You've probably got a limited amount of budget about what it is that you're looking to do with your brand. So you're going to have to start narrowing it down. What people tend to do is put every single idea they've ever had since the age of 3 into their first collection, worried that they're never going to get another go at it. But what will happen is that you'll burn out, you'll run out of money, and you'll end up with 30 garments that are kind of half finished, and knowing that you're going to have a go at this, and you can put 5 things out, then you can put another 3 things out, and then you can put another 2 things out, and sort of spread it out that way, because you'll also keep the interest of your audience as well. Sourcing materials. So this upcoming to sourcing shows, I'm so glad that after COVID, something like this is back again. This is the perfect way to find fabrics, to find factories, and actually speak to people. Like going up, finding out what it is that they do, and knowing that different factories have different responsibilities. So a factory that has made a suit is unlikely to make an outfit that you would go to the gym in. Different factories specialize in different things, and factories often specialize by fabric. So you might find a jersey factory, a wovens factory, a denim factory, a knitwear factory. And so know that if you are looking to do all of those things, you may or may not have to find 4 different factories if you're looking to work with all those different fabric types. To make it easier, start with an activewear collection where everything may be made under one roof, or start with only wovens or only knitwear or only denim. Then moving on to design packs. So you can actually source materials or design your tech packs interchangeably. People design in different ways. You might find the fabrics that you want to design into, or you might design the garments that you want and then source fabrics for that. But when you're first starting out, you're probably quite limited, maybe on budget or minimum order quantity. So if you're thinking, the sky's the limit, and you've got this dream fabric in mind, you might get stuck, sort of like caught out. So I often recommend that you source fabrics first, knowing what budget you have, knowing what minimum order quantities there are. Often, asking people if they hold stock fabrics or dead stock fabrics, end of roll fabrics will really help you out if you're looking to get a low minimum order quantity, or MOQ. If you see that written down, that's what that means. Then you want to get that sent to the pattern cutter. So we want to basically, a pattern cutter, somebody asked me once, do I need a pattern cutter if all my garments are plain? And the answer was yes, because there is no such thing as a silly question, but I wanted to put that in there because a pattern cutter is basically a translator to get the garment from 2D on paper to 3D. If you're not sure about pattern cutting or how it all works, get on YouTube, have a look. But basically, it's all different pattern pieces laid out. Imagining this runway was the roll of fabric. It would get rolled out, and then they would lay the pattern pieces on top, cut them all out, piece them together. You've got a 3D garment to then make your toile. Not a toil, it's a toile, aka your first sample that will come back. Please, please, please don't get disheartened if this first sample doesn't look like your dream that you've had since you were 5 in your sketchbook. Things do take time to get right. You can tweak it, you can refit it, you can change the fabric, you can change the design. And if, again, you're not confident doing this on your own to fit it and send comments to the factory, you could maybe work with a freelance garment technologist to help you technically portray what it is to the factory, because factories speak in black and white language, no fluffy language when it comes to working with factories. A little bit of this or a little bit of that, a little bit longer, a little bit fluffier. We want it 5% longer, 5 centimeters shorter, using Pantone colors rather than a dirty pink or a bright yellow. We really want to be making sure that we're as specific and clear as possible. It's kind of like buying this table from IKEA and showing a photo and expecting somebody to put it together. You want the photo, but also a really clear list of instructions on how, step by step, how to put that together. So a shape designer or a garment technologist will be able to help you, and this is especially important if you're working with people from with a language barrier as well. So if you're not speaking the same language, a bright yellow can mean very, very different things in different languages. We want to be sticking to as technical language as possible to make sure you get what it is that you want. And then you keep reworking the fit until it's perfect. You approve the final sample, and then you make sure that you quality check it at the end, or you're working with the factory to quality check. You know, when you're going over to the sourcing section today, maybe asking how they quality check, what processes do you have in place if it gets delivered and it's not as I requested. Knowing all of those things up front can really help you. It's kind of like having the divorce papers, I can't remember what they're called, a contract in place whilst like things are happy days. We want to know what the process is going to be. So I've just put this like bonus slide in here for you. Again, like feel free to take a picture. Working in fashion is like learning a whole other language. There is abbreviations left, right, and center. So I just wanted to run through them. If you see GMT, it means garment. FTY is factory. QC is quality control or quality checking. MOQ is minimum order quantity. DTM is dyed to match. QTY is quantity, CP is cost price, SP is sell price, MMT is measurement, SS is short sleeve, LS is long sleeve. So if you're seeing these sort of abbreviations, it's kind of hard to Google them because like they don't always come up on Google. So just working with somebody like me, I can like decipher it or, you know, translate it for you. And so step 3 is actually knowing your purpose. Why do you want to have this brand in the first place? I mentioned to you earlier that it's really important for me to help people take fashion seriously in their life. I don't think fashion is taken seriously as a career, potentially. You know, I've had a lot of eye-rolling conversations with people in bars or, you know, career fairs. I went to a very academic school. I'll tell you a quick story that I actually went to this very posh private girls' school, which was great, not so helpful when you're wanting to work in fashion. And I was on my dial-up internet at home looking for the perfect course for me because I can't draw to start with, so I couldn't be a fashion designer. I'm not going to be a fashion model, so what else is there out there for me? And I stumbled across this course called Fashion Retail Buying. Nobody had graduated from the course when I took part in it, so it was very risky to do it. Saw in the Daily Mail that it was a Mickey Mouse degree, but I went for it anyway. And I got pulled into my headmistress's office, and she said, you only need 2 grade C's to get into this degree. So have a think about the kind of people you might end up mixing with if you go ahead and do it. And I thought, 2 fingers up, I'm going to go anyway. Obviously had the time of my life. But I just think, I don't know if anybody has experienced sort of similar things, or saying to your parents that you want to study fashion and they say, no, it's not a proper career. It is a proper career. It's actually the 3rd largest money-making industry in the UK. The highest taxpayer. I'm telling you these facts so that you can throw them back at people when anyone says anything. The highest taxpayer in the UK is the man that owns JD Sports. The richest man in Spain is the man who owns Zara, and the richest man in Sweden is the man that owns H&M. We need to come up with some more female examples, but besides that, we'll start with this. But this is why I do what I do. You can see the passion, you can see the excitement, you can see the enthusiasm. I could go on, for hours about it. But why do you want to start a fashion brand? Because there is a really great talk on YouTube by a guy called Simon Sinek, and it's called How Great Leaders Inspire with Action. It's 18 minutes long, and I highly, highly, highly recommend that you read it, that you watch it. But he also has a book called Start With Why. And what he says in it is people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And so if we had a look at here, just as a quick glance around, there's lots of flowery dresses. Why should I buy your flowery dress? Why should I buy yours? Why should I buy yours? Each single stand here will have a different reason why that flowery dress has come to fruition. And so it might make you buy from them versus them. They might donate to charity. They might be sustainable. They might be where everything is recycled. Everyone has a different reason. And so it really helps people get across the line. They might love your dress, but then they hold back. They don't actually end up in the checkout. But when you start telling your story about why it is you do what you do, it will absolutely get somebody across the line and into the checkout. And so making money, obviously, we all want to make money. That's not why you do what you do. That's not why it's fashion. It's not why you have ended up picking this particular area to work in. I want you to dig a little deeper. There might be something like my story that I told you about my headmistress. Often when we start a business, we're trying to fix something that has happened in our life that you want to resolve, or you may have seen something or read something or watched something where you've gone, wow, that's not okay. And it might be the most random thing that you come across, and that will be the reason why you want to start this brand. So have a think about it. Have a think about how you want your audience to feel, what you want to be known for, and that is the thing that will make you and your brand unique and stand out from the rest of the crowd. And step 4, all important, is stick to a budget. I want you to think about it like you're building a house. You wouldn't set out to build a house without having a budget in mind. People often put their life savings into starting a fashion brand without any kind of plan, any contingency, or any budgeting in mind. And honestly, I genuinely feel like I was sometimes put on this planet to stop people investing their life savings into their fashion brand without having a plan in place. Because there are so many hidden costs within starting a fashion brand that you may not have thought about. So hiring a garment designer, getting the patterns made, getting the patterns graded into different sizes, packaging and trims, production and the transport of that production. You may assume that the cost price includes transport, but often it doesn't. Getting your website designed, there is like an annual domain fee that comes alongside that. Getting a photo shoot done, but when you have a photo shoot, you also need models, you need makeup artists, you need hairdressers and a location. And I would say with all of these things, you want to pull in as many favors as possible. If you can do it yourself, amazing. If you don't feel confident, then you can hire some help. Things like Fiverr or People Per Hour or small business Facebook groups are absolutely amazing at finding people. But whatever your budget is, I want you to break it down into a third, a third, a third. So if you have £100 to start this brand, you want to spend £33 getting your samples made, £33 with manufacturing, and £33 in your marketing. So often people plummet their full life savings into getting everything manufactured, and then there's nothing left to tell anybody about the fact that you've spent your life savings on getting it manufactured. So really spreading those costs out, whether it's £100 or it's £100,000, the breakdown remains the same. And then step 5, similar to what I was talking about earlier, is to build an audience before you launch. Like, I could get down on my hands and knees and beg you to do this. Honestly, if you take away anything from today, I want it to be this, because I have seen too many brands make this mistake where they launch with 300 units and 100 followers. And I don't know if anybody can tell me what the major issue is with this. Is just basic rule of supply and demand. You need more people than you have product, not the other way around. And you will often hear with factories like, oh yeah, we have a really low MOQ of 300 units. A low MOQ of 300 units is low for somebody like ASOS, who has a multi-million-pound marketing budget, not somebody who is starting out with 100 followers. So please, please just remember this. It is more important at this stage for you to negotiate your quantity down than to negotiate your price down, because you just want to test it. You just want to put it to the market and find out what it is that people want. And the price varies with different people, but I often try and tell people, please don't spend more than £10,000 before you put something to market, because you don't know what people want. I've worked in the industry for like nearly 2 decades, and I still would never, I mean, you've got a better idea of knowing what people want, but at the end of the day, it's 50-50 whether they're gonna like it or whether they're not. And sometimes we would put thousands and thousands of pounds and units behind something, and it bombs, and then you buy 300 units of something and it sells out in days, and you just don't know. And so the more information you have, the better. You know, looking back on your past bestsellers, looking and asking your factories what other people are interested in, what are other people buying. But at the end of the day, you're kind of buying blind. And so what you want to do is buy a certain number of units, put it out, see what does well, do more of what works well and less of what doesn't. And it's as simple as that. There is actually a really good documentary on iPlayer called Breaking Fashion. And it's about a fast fashion brand in the north. But if we put that to one side, he basically built a 7-figure brand by buying 10 dresses, and he saw which ones did well, which ones that didn't, and scaled it from there. And it is actually really fascinating when you look at it like that. So the best way to build an audience before your launch is to create content. So hopefully some of you joined the talk before this, but if you didn't, you can scan this QR code and still get the slides. But creating content that speaks directly to your ideal audience, whether that's through blogging, it's through Instagram, it's through TikTok, it's through email. Like, all of these platforms are free for you to actively attract your ideal customer to your website. And using as an example, I don't know if anyone knows the beauty brand Glossier. Glossier looks like it came out of nowhere. It like blew up. It was this multi-million-pound business sort of overnight. One of the big reasons that contributed to her success was that she had a blog that had 10,000 readers before she launched anything. And so I'm not saying you need 10,000 readers, or I'm just saying that you need to build an audience before you launch. And if you're not sure how to do it, I do have this free 5-day challenge that is coming up. It starts a week today. So from Monday, the 20th of February to the 24th, it's a different challenge every single day, or a different workshop. I promise you, it is literally completely free. So this has come at a really good time to tell you about it. We'll cover if you have a visibility problem online and how to fix it, 5 ways to stay motivated when nobody is seeing your content, how to stop worrying about what other people think, 3 stories you should be posting every single work day. I put in there. I'm not a maniac. I don't go on every day. And how to be more confident on camera. So if that sounds like something you would be interested in, you can scan this QR code here. It will take you to my Instagram, or you can just follow me directly here. It's on my website, so the link to join, it's free to join. It's pinned to the top of both my Instagram and my website. But also, I do have a podcast called The Fashion Brand Clinic. I interview lots of different brands about how they've had their success. I interview people in the industry if you're looking to work in fashion, and just hear people's different experiences. So yeah, stay in touch. I hope you enjoy it. I hope it's helpful. And does anyone have any questions? I know it can be a bit nerve-wracking putting your hand up and asking a question in front of everybody, but don't worry, I'm here for a little while. Oh, we have one. We've got a question. I'm going to come up here.
Do you feel it's still possible to grow fully organically, or do you always have to put budget into marketing?
Okay, so the question is, do you think you can still grow organically, or do you feel like you need to put budget into growing your audience? I definitely believe that you can grow organically. That is honestly what this is all about how to grow organically. If we think about a bestseller in your product range, if you put ad spend behind that bestseller, it will only do better. If you put ad spend behind something that is not selling, it still won't sell. And the thing is, like, you need to be able to create an organic traction and growth in order for the ads to make any difference. So if you're not getting any engagement, you're not getting any DMs, you're not getting any sales off the back of social media, putting ad spend behind it is only going to be burning money. It's not going to make any difference. You need to learn how to create engaging, compelling content that converts before putting money behind it. And so that's literally like what I love talking about, in all honesty, to get you to the point where ads will make a difference, rather than kind of just throwing money at the problem and hoping it will work. Anybody else? No. Oh, yes.
Thank you. You spoke a lot on like Instagram and like growing and being, basically growing on Instagram. I wanted to know a little bit more about like maybe your journey and my mentorship, because I think over the years I've heard a lot about get a mentor, and sometimes I'm really interested in getting a mentor, but sometimes you feel like, well, at what stage do you feel it's necessary to get a mentor to kind of help you and guide you in your journey and growing? So like maybe your experience, if you ever had a mentor, and maybe how that's benefited you to where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just generally talking about mentorship. I read another really good book. I'm a complete bookworm, called, it's a bit of a cheesy title, but it's an amazing book about how to be a badass at making money. And she said in there, get a mentor from day one. And so I read this book before I left my job. How to be a badass at making money. And so she said, whatever your budget is, she suggested allocating some money to find somebody to help you get to where it is that you want to do, or what it is that you want to do. And ideally, somebody who has already done what it is that you want to do, or is in the right arena. And so what I try and help people with is business coaching from a fashion perspective, because what you might find is a business advisor has no idea about manufacturing or CMT or MOQs. So kind of blending those two things together. But yeah, I do offer one-to-one mentorship. I would say at this stage, it's for people who are scaling rather than starting. But I've got lots of like group programs that for people who are all at that stage. So yeah, I'm all about having a mentor. It made a massive, massive difference to my business. I actually said when I finished working with her, like, oh, I could never have done it without you. And she said, you could have done it, just would have taken you longer. And so the way I see it is like having a mentor is like having your foot on the accelerator pedal. It will just get you there faster. It might be a cost, but it will the costly mistakes that you'll avoid by having one will more than like outweigh the cost of having one in the first place. Yeah. Amazing, cool. Well, let's wrap it up because I'm conscious we may be running over time, but feel free to come and chat to me, come and follow me, listen to the podcast, stay in touch. As you know, I'm all about helping you take your fashion career seriously. So, good luck.